G'day everyone and welcome to Australia here in Melbourne for round 9 of the PSGL F3 Championship. We are back for another round with our championship leader Max, who has gone 2 for 2 now in the last 2 races in terms of race wins, and we're excited to see how that will go today. But my name is Felix and I'm once again joined by Jake. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening. It's nice to be back in Melbourne. It feels like an awful long time since I've commentated on a race at Melbourne. And the beauty of sim racing is that us Europeans don't have to get up at stupid o'clock to do this. It's nice at peak time. Of I don't think many Aussies will have sympathy with us.
I mean, the track has changed rapidly in comparison to last season's game, and it is a whole new track layout. Basically, we have many corners that stay the same, but were still changed. Like, the nature of the corner has changed completely, even though the corners just got a little bit widened. We're talking about, I think, a total of 4 or 5 corners that have been widened or altered in any way. And then of course you've had the entire section of turns 9 and 10 being removed. The slow part that was always just, and a little spin from Fruitful already on his outlap, that has always just kind of slowed down the flow, wasn't really made for overtaking at all, and they've removed it, and now we've got an entire long straight before we come up to the now really quick turns of 9 and 10.
Yeah, it's a really positive track change. Sometimes when designers decide to alter a track off, sometimes they just make it more complicated. They don't really add anything to it. I think Melbourne are very much focused on the racing and trying to improve that, and it definitely shows. I think it's a much improved track layout. It should lead to better racing, both in real life and in the game. And I'm excited to see what tonight brings. And it must be a difficult track now to set up your car for, because you've got a real mix of, you've got that massive long straight, but you've still got the technical section really at the start and end of a lap. So it's a bit of a conundrum when it comes to setting up your car.
Yeah, and I think one of the best changes they've made, apart from removing turns 9 and 10, is the corner that Kieran is coming up to right now. Turn 11 is a lot more sharp. It's not off camber anymore, so it is allowing a move around the outside now, and it's a lot more heavy in terms of the braking zone, which definitely opens up the space for an overtake here and there. Also, the last corner is a lot more wide than it used to be. Turn 14 as Kieran comes across the line to set the first lap of the evening, a 1:17 flat, which puts him onto provisional pole. Obviously, I think we've got Black Box coming up, who is willing to come back to the front now, to come back into that championship fight, because Max ran away in the last couple of weeks with the championship a little bit. Let me quickly just check exactly how many points. I looked at it just 5 minutes ago and I once again forgot, but he now has a 13-point gap to second placed Black Box, who was able to do some damage limitation last week in Spa, but Max won that race with pure dominance. And also Rick had another stroke of bad luck in that race with his tyre failure on the final lap right out of Stavolo 2, where he dropped from 4th place all the way down outside the points, which completely destroyed his chances for his championship probably.
Yeah, it was a real heartbreaking moment for him, and it was a gamble on the strategy. It didn't quite pay off, and it probably does signal an end to his championship hopes, which is quite a transformation when you think 2 or 3 races ago he was a championship leader, but his form just completely fallen away in the second half of the season. And the one race where it looked like he was getting back on track, fate struck a cruel blow at Spa on the last lap and robbed him of a potential podium. First few lap times coming in qualifying, I've seen a comment already saying Anryu will win. Of course, he's coming on off the back of his best result this season last week when he got P4. It was a quietly impressive performance, I have to say, and his opening lap time isn't too shabby either, just a 10th adrift of Kieran, who still leads away.
Yeah, Fruitful, also one of the guys who has shown his pace. He has shown what he's capable of, but he's very rarely been able to really make it to the end with that sort of pace, as he goes a bit wide coming through the very, very wide turn 6, I believe it is, if I'm not completely mistaken. And, you know, he has shown some pace here and there, and also in Spa once again. He was in second place, I believe, for a very long time, as he goes wide out of turn 10, which only lost him time. So it is alright that his lap time does not get invalidated. But he's never really been able to make it till the end with that pace he has shown. So that is an issue he needs to address and needs to work on if he wants to secure a good result, which he is definitely capable of before the end of the season, because it's only 3 rounds left, including this one.
Yeah, his opening lap time only good enough for P10, and McLaren's still very much in the picture in the Constructors' Championship, and Black Box could do with Fruitful picking up a bit more consistency, picking up points, or certainly on a regular basis in these last 3 rounds, to give McLaren a decent chance of maybe overhauling the gap to Aston Martin, who currently lead the way. Aston Martin are a formidable team to beat, though, in this division. Jabraka and Yoan consistently tend to score decent points, although last week, you know, they had a couple of issues. I don't think Yoan had a bad race for his championship hopes, so we'll see how it goes today. But the order, I'd say, at the moment in qualifying is slightly odd, although could have some more normality to it with Max on a lap, but he has invalidated his opening attempt. So we've seen him often early on in qualifying sticking on pole and no one able to beat him. He's not having that just yet in his qualifying session.
Yeah, but there's still plenty of time, 10 minutes left on the clock, as we've got the first couple of drivers to start their second lap. Damiano is one of them, who was immediately invalidated through turn 2, which I think has become even more tricky now because it's quicker than it was before, but on the exit it's not wider, so it's still very easy to invalidate. It's just that the apex was moved a bit more to the right, so you can carry a lot more speed through it, but you still have to watch out because you tend to invalidate because there is some astroturf on the outside, or on the inside of turn 2, I should rather say, that you can use to gain a good momentum coming down to turn 3, which is also one of the main overtaking opportunities around this track. And it's very easy to just go that a little bit too wide to carry enough momentum and to carry enough rhythm and speed through that corner for the rest of your lap. But the drivers need to find the right balance through there, and also around turns 9 and 10, especially through turn 10, it's very easy to invalidate, and the curb on the inside is not really nice to the cars on this year's F1 game, so the drivers should look out for that one.
Yeah, some challenging aspects to his track, absolutely. Black Box is on a decent lap here. Is he about to go on provisional pole? Yes, he is. First man into the 116s, and with a couple attempts to spare, takes provisional pole away from Kieran, and the first of our championship contenders sets the marker down.
Let's see if anyone else is on a lap. Zane is currently improving his provisional lap time so far. Will put him up to P4 at the moment, as he does not invalidate. Good stuff from him through turn 10, coming up to a bit of traffic now, but they all give room for the Alpine driver very nicely, and very fair from those guys in the Aston Martin and a Ferrari, that was, I believe, as he comes around that final sector now, the slowest part of this race track, and through the widened turn 13, 14, as he improves a lot more in the final sector and jumps up to P5 even, ahead of his teammate and not too far off Andrew.
No, absolutely. Good decent lap from Zane Kryptonite. Moved up to P3 while that was happening. Good lap from him. We've still yet to see what Rick, Max and Yoan can do. 3 of the still mathematical contenders for a championship. I'm going to include Rick in that because it's not out of the question. If Max has a really bad evening tonight and Rick picks up a win, he doesn't rule himself out just yet. So we'll keep an eye on how he does. But Yoan is who I'm watching at the moment because he's on a lap and he's just coming up towards the very tricky turns 9 and 10, which can really make or break your lap.
Let's see what Johan is able to do. Maybe he's able to set his first counting lap of the day in his Aston Martin. I think that's the third car I've seen with number 7 now. As he comes around the final sector, turns 12 and then into 13. Nicely on the apex on the outside. You don't have to widen that entry into turn 14 out that much, as Rick retires from the session, and I believe he has actually crashed as Johan goes into P6, and it looks like Rick's streak of bad luck or bad results is not coming to a hold, at least not in this quali session.
No, absolutely not. Not what he needed. He actually set a pretty decent first sector, I'd just seen on his lap, so, but he looks like he's lost it around sort of turns sort of 7, maybe coming out of turn 7 perhaps, is where he's lost it. Max has done apparently a purple middle sector, although sometimes the game can lie to us on that one, but either way it looks like he's on a pretty solid lap, and he'll be aiming to get into the 116s, I would suspect. Can he topple Black Box for provisional pole? Nobody goes to P2 with just a 10th adrift, and that's a bit more like it from Max, but still not on provisional pole right now. That belongs to Black Box.
Yeah, Black Box needs to beat his main rival Max here tonight in case he wants to keep that championship fight going all the way until the final race at Kota, because otherwise it's going to be difficult. Damiano is on a lap that seems to be better than his first one so far, or his previous one at least, with only being 10th place. That is not what he would hope for, probably. Not too far off Hersey though, or Hersey, sorry. As he comes around the final couple of corners, let's see where the AlphaTauri driver can go. Is he able to move up a couple of positions? P8 is not too far away, and he goes even P5. That was a massive improvement in his final sector, and good stuff from Damiano here.
Yeah, nice lap from the AlphaTauris. Both AlphaTauris currently in the top 5 positions, and they haven't had the best of run of form of late, so it would be good to see both of them up towards the front of the field. Jabraka looks like he may be on a better lap as well, currently P12 in the Aston Martin. Coming around the final corner, up to the line. Where does Jabraka go? He goes up to 4th, so massive improvement from him, and not overly surprising because we've seen on many occasions Jabraka has got a very good turn of pace.
33-second improvement in the middle sector for Morbrook. That is down to his first lap being 41 seconds off the pace. Well, he's still trying to set his first proper lap of the evening. Black Box, by the way, tried to go for another run, but invalidated straight away in the first sector. So he has abandoned his next run, and he should have enough time if he comes into the pits now. Yes, he's in the third sector. Should be easily enough to go back into the garage and go out again. As Morbrook puts his Ferrari on the second row of the grid. What a lap from Morbrook there was. Not even 2.5 tenths off pole position at the moment. And that's how you jump from 16th up to 4th.
Yeah, it was really difficult to tell with Morbrook how much where he was going to go, because he hadn't set a representative time up to that point. But yeah, nice lap time from Morbrook. Into the top 4 he goes, and he hasn't had the best of seasons. His best result was a 6th place at Silverstone, but that's a decent turn of pace in qualifying. We'll see if he can keep that up into the race. No one as of yet can challenge Black Box or Max getting to 1 minute 16s, but there's many drivers right on the cusp of doing so.
One of them was Zane until he just invalidated a couple of seconds ago through turn 10. And if he now pits straight away, he should have enough time for full. Looks to be on his final run of the evening. I doubt that he's got confidence in those tyres for 2 flying laps. So he's coming through the first sector now for probably his final run. Not too far up the grid right now in P14, but he improves by a bit more than a tenth in the first sector, as he keeps his hope of a good qualifying position alive in his McLaren with the number 8 through the new part of this track. Just full on the throttle, and then who breaks the latest and who gets the nicest run through turns 9 and 10. He looked very careful through there. Didn't throw the car in like Max did earlier on his lap. So he was a bit more careful in order to not invalidate as he comes into that newly revamped turn 11. And through the final sector, if he keeps that tidy, he's going to improve by quite a lot, it looks like. Through the final corner of turn 14, doesn't invalidate. Was close though on the exit. And let's see where Fruitful goes. He jumps up to P7. So it's going to be a maximum of P7 for Fruitful here tonight on the grid. Fourth row it is. Not too bad, but could be better. I'm not quite sure if he's really happy with that one.
No, he's probably he'll be hoping he can just about survive in the top 10 without that time, but there's so many drivers to complete a lap. We'll see if he stays there. Ghost King's just finished a lap, but he's only improved to P15 on a 1:17.6. He would have been hoping for a bit more than that. Victor is on a lap as well. Just following him around the final corner. He's currently down in 16th. Can he improve from where he is at the moment? It's not looking all too quick. Yeah, only 14th for him, but everyone now very much getting to the same ballpark of lap times. And I'm just wondering who is on a lap at the moment.
Max is. Let's see what he does in the first sector. And the Ferrari got in the way, maybe just that slight little bit, but he stayed off the track in order to not... he's 1/10 down on his time though. Can he find that time back? It needs to be a beautiful, it needs to be an almost perfect middle and final sector in order to gain that time back that he lost in that first sector. It didn't look like the tidiest of runs through that part, and he slightly regained some time, but not even half a tenth, and he needs to improve even more. And I think his final sector on his previous lap was really good. So if he wants to have any chance for a pole position here, Max needs to put out that perfect third sector now in his Williams car. Our championship leader is struggling, and you saw he's lost the back end, and that looks like it completely unsettled his car now. He's still going to come across the line, obviously. Every single bit of hope he needs right now to get that pole position, but he won't get it. 19 thousandths of a second of his best lap so far. Andrea has just started a lap. Kieran is on a lap, and he's improving by 2.5 tenths.
Yeah, this could be massive for Kieran. Could potentially take provisional pole position if he can keep this going around the final sector. So Max might find himself being knocked off the front row very shortly. Andrew has improved to P3, but that may be about to be knocked down because Kieran is on a flying lap indeed. Let's see what he does around his final corner. It's a 16.7 he needs for pole position. Is he going to do it? Marley moves up to P3. Kieran moves up to pole.
And let's see, does Black Box have anything to reply to that? His middle sector is better than his previous one, but he needs to find even more time in that final sector coming through turn 13 and then into 14 now. He needs to nail this one if he wants to get his pole position here tonight in Australia. Is he quick enough to go on pole? No, he is not. 67 thousandths of a second behind Kieran. Great lap from the AlphaTauri driver, who looked quick straight away with his first lap of the evening, and he got pole position. Andrew has a bad on his lap. Mali, by the way, came completely out of nowhere. He hadn't set a lap time so far before this one, and the only one he set in this entire session has put him all the way up into the second row of the grid. Great stuff from the Mercedes driver.
Yep, Johan is the only driver, I think, who's on a lap now. He's only P13. He will not be happy if he starts from that position. He proves, does he? Yeah, I think he did, but he stays 13th. That's a disastrous qualifying for someone who's still in championship contention. That's a real blow for him.
And it looks like Max has maybe found some more competition than he had in Spa, where he was completely dominant and looked very composed, very controlled over the entirety of that race. And now he starts from the second row of the grid with his closest championship rival Black Box ahead of him, and a Kieran that he will love at the moment, because Kieran was the one who took pole position away from a Black Box in the end. So we've got two championship contenders inside the top three, and Kieran is the one who beat both of them. Great stuff from him in this quali session. Mali, out of nowhere, took fourth place. Jabaka keeps up the good run for Aston Martin in quali at least, with another strong P5. And Ryu in 6th in his Haas Marlborough put his Ferrari up into 7th. Kryptonite, very quiet quali session from him. He's in 8th. Denzo starts from 9th, and Fruitful rounds up the top 10. Well, we have Johan all the way down in 13th, and Rick all the way down in last, not even set a lap time, and crashed before he could even set his first one.
Yeah, he's it's going to be such a tough race for Rick now, and he must just be feeling everything is going against him at the moment. And I tell you, if he battles back and scores some good points tonight, I'd say that's a excellent recovery from where he's at. The championship's probably out of his mind now, because I think he knows that it's going to take quite a miracle to bring him back into contention. But tell you what, Kieran was P2 last week. He's ticket on pole tonight. He's found a turn of pace, Kieran, and obviously we commentated on him last season when he was the F4 champ, and he's not had a bad season in F3, but he hasn't maybe had as many podiums as he would have won. That was his first of the season last week, and he's had a couple of DNFs as well. So we'll see how he gets on, but from pole position, he could be pretty hard to stop, and we'll see how Max gets on, because for the first time in a few weeks, he's not looking. He's got cars around him. He's got to worry at the start and try and keep out of trouble.
Maybe he is willing to take that lead straight away again, though, after he already proved to be very good at starts, as he showed in Portugal a couple of weeks ago, as we are ready for the lights to come on. And we are up to 5 red lights in Australia, the third to last round of the season, and we are underway. As the sun sets, it seems to be not the best of starts from Kieran. Blackbox has already tried to get past. Mali has a little look on the inside of Blackbox, while Max and Blackbox are fighting it out through turns 1 and 2, as it looks like Max was pushed wide a little bit and now comes under pressure from Mali in his Mercedes. And there comes the Haas of Andrea. Does he have the space? Yes, Andrea drives it down the inside and he crashes into Blackbox. Completely outbrakes himself, and he takes out the championship contender. A lot of chaos through turn 3. And a disastrous start for the second place man in the championship. And Max will say thank you very much. And he will happily take that second place after that kind of start.
That's not at all what we wanted to see. One of the championship contenders taken out through no fault of his own. Amryu just completely missed the braking zone. And you could just almost see it happening almost in slow motion as it was going wrong. And for Blackbox, that's a real blow. I imagine he's got some damage on that car as well. And we'll just see if he can try and fight his way back. But Kieran, that gives him a bit of breathing space out front now after that, with Max in P2, with Mali close behind.
And it looks like Zane and Victor having a little battle through the third sector. Not too easy to go side by side through here without making any contact. Let's just have a slight look at the tyres. It looks like everyone has started on the hards except from Ghost King, who's already gained 3 positions up from P18 up to P15. Needs to make good use of his tyres, as Rick is having a little look at both of them now, after Victor has gone past Zane. And it looks like Jabrak has had a spin, and yes, he had, and Fruitful is round as well. It's got horribly wrong for both McLarens. It looks like Victor's also round. I didn't see what was going on there, but both cars have spun round, and we've got many position changes. We've got a Red Bull facing the wrong way as well. A lot of chaos in the opening laps of this Australian Grand Prix, and it looks like the drivers have not found their rhythm so far.
Yeah, really scruffy start from a lot of the drivers. A lot of carnage going on. I mean, this sums up how chaotic it's been. Blackbox is back up to P9 already.
Oh, look at that. We've got so much chaos on that long straight now. Up all the way down to P, I think 15 that is. And it looks like Ghost King is the one that comes out on top in that fight. No wonder he's on the best compound. He's on the softest compound, but gets put under pressure from Jabaka now once again after his spin. I didn't see what was going on, but it looks like there was some contact with someone, and now he's having a little look back at Ghost King. He needs to be given the room on the inside, and he is given the room on the inside as Ghost King goes a little bit wide, and now Jabraka goes wide, and Damiano says thank you very much, goes through but can't quite take the position just yet, and out of the final corner it looks like it's going to be a duel of who has the lowest downforce as Zayn is into the pits, probably with some front wing damage, as Jabraka now down the inside into the first corner. He pushes his rival out wide, and now he loses another position against his teammate, and Johan is going to take P12 happily, and it looks like Damiano has let both of them go. Alright.
Well, this is not what the constructors leaders Aston Martin would have wanted to see Johan and Jabraka battling over P12. They've had a real nightmare start, the pair of them, and not gone the way they would have wanted. What's happening here? Why is a yellow flag out? Rick, meanwhile, has just moved past Denzo for P7. It's worth noting, Rick has gone up 13 places here. If he can hold on to that position, that is, through turns 9 and 10, which he can't. Denzo fights back and retakes P7.
Yeah, that takes a lot of bravery to overtake around that corner. And Denzo showed that in that situation, and he's gone past. But yeah, Rick just stayed out of trouble. It looks like we've got a spin from... who was that? Vengeance. Yep. Vengeance has gone round through turn 11. And we see a lot of chaos. Drivers are struggling so much right now. It's really surprising to see as Denzo now also pits. And I wonder if Black Box has got any damage, because it doesn't look to be too quick. And I saw some parts were flying as... I already forgot who that was. I think Andrew flew down the inside into turn 3 and completely hit the championship contender off the track. Vengeance picks up his first...
Oh, and more contact. Ghost King and Damiano with contact, and that pushed Damiano off the track. Give Ghost King the position. It's, I say, so much has happened at this start. We're only 4 laps in, and just you can see how chaotic it's been when you just look at how the field is already spread out.
Yeah, and also look at the position changes. Fedis Biga also didn't even notice he was in this lobby so far, and suddenly he's up to P6. And yeah, we've got many drivers with some good starts, but a lot of drivers as well who's had horrible starts to this race. One of them being Jabraka with his spin black box, with being taken out into turn 3, which completely shattered his hopes for his race win so far. But he won't give up, I'm pretty sure. But for the moment, he's all the way down in P8, and he seems to have some front wing damage. He will need a safety car if he wants to get a shot at this race win, which I believe he would have if he had a completely repaired car, and if he wouldn't have been hit off just 3 corners into this race.
Yeah, and just have a look at the fastest laps drivers are set just to get an idea of what pace they're running at. Black Box must have some damage on his car, because his best lap is a 22.9.
Oh, Kieran is round! No. Kieran through the first sector is round and has lost the race lead, and even P2 with that. He managed to stay ahead of Molbrook for now. I don't know if there's some front wing damage for him, but he was round through turn 5, I believe it was. The quick right-hander, easy to spin there if you just hit the curb a little bit too much, or you just go a bit offline there. And suddenly, Max, without really seeming to be able to pass him within the next couple of laps, with a proper attack, he's suddenly back in the lead.
Sometimes you just have to think it's almost destiny for somebody to win the championship, because Max has found his way up to P4 from P3 to P1 without really doing anything. He saw Black Box get taken out by Amryu, and now he's seen Kieran lose it on his own. So Max finds himself in the lead, and he hasn't really had to do any overtaking to get there.
Yeah, just to come back to that incident in the 3rd corner on the opening lap, I think Andrew was so focused on overtaking Max that in the moment, he pulled out of that slipstream to the inside as Black Box gets overtaken by Ghost King now. As Ghost King goes a little bit wide, it maybe gives Black Box a chance again to pass him, but Black Box is not even using his ERS, and he slows down to let Damiano go by. Smart decision, because he knows he can't fight this one. He doesn't even want to get past. He is probably shouting, get on with it, mate. I've got front wing damage. There's no use for me to fight any of this. He will need a safety car. His teammate Fufla is retired in the pit lane. And I think in that exact moment when Andrew pulled out, he then realized that the braking zone was already there and it was too late. He slammed on the brakes, locked up all 4 tires, and just went straight on. And it was lucky for Max as well to not get hit, because if Andrea would have pulled out just 1,000 of a second too late, he would have hit Max and not Black Box.
Yeah, it's it was just one of those. You saw Anryu was never gonna slow down on time, and you just worried as to who was gonna get collected. And unfortunately for Black Box, it was him. And he just can't fight with the front wing damage he's got at the moment, and he's just seeing people go past left, right, and centre. I've got to say, fair play to Marley here, because he's keeping Max very honest at the moment. He's not pulling away from the Mercedes driver, and Marley making sure that this fight at the front stays interesting, while Kieran is still having to fend off Mobrak after that spin, and Mobrak goes wide as I speak and loses a bit of time to Kieran. So we've got a few different drivers at the front of the field here. It's going to be interesting to see how they get on, and it could be a potential three-way fight for fifth very soon, because it looks like Rick and Fedespiga are closing in on Kryptonite.
I'm curious to see how quick Black Box is going to be after his pit stop when he repairs that front wing damage that he has, because he needs to. You can see he's got no pace whatsoever, and he wants to get off that set of tyres and wants to get that new front wing on the car as soon as possible, but he can't pit just yet because he's on the harder compound and the mediums won't make it that long. He can't pit on this lap, and he won't be able to pit on the next lap either. I'm not exactly sure how long you can take those medium tyres, but at this point I think even a two-stop strategy would be quicker for him than going on with that set of hards and that broken front wing now.
Yeah, I wonder if Ghost King is better off potentially pitting and just going on to a two-stopper, being a bit more aggressive. There could be a safety car later on as well that might bring him back into contention. I wonder why there was a yellow flag out. Ambrose going very slowly in his Haas with Ethan going by. Since Kieran spun, he's starting to bring that gap back down to the leading pair, so he's clearly got the pace and he could bring himself back into the fight. He just needs to avoid having another off like he had earlier. And Mobarak, fair play, is sticking with him. We haven't really seen this kind of pace all too often from the Ferrari driver.
Yeah, Andrew retires in the pits. Just a horrible day. He won't be happy with himself either, and you can't hate on him all too much because mistakes happen. Those are millisecond decisions that these drivers have to make in the heat of the moment, and a mistake can happen, and it's always unfortunate if it doesn't only involve yourself but also other drivers. And in the end, his mistake cost Black Box a really good result here tonight. As it stands, it's not over yet, keep that in mind, but still you can't hate on him all too much because mistakes happen, but I think it's clear who was at fault for that.
No, I'm sure he'll be beating himself up enough as it is without one. It's just one of those. You feel like he can't help but feel like a bit of an idiot when it happens, but I'm sure it's happened to every driver at some point. You're heating a moment on the first lap, and the corner comes up sooner than you're expecting, and yeah, unfortunately for Anryu, it's a shame because he qualified well and I think he could have been in contention for a good result without that, but sadly not to be. Still got Marley keeping Max very honest at the front of the field. Around the same ERS usage. It's worth noting in terms of ERS usage that Mobrak has completely drained his battery. So maybe having to push a little bit more to stay in contention at the front.
Yeah, I don't really want to take my eyes off that Mercedes car in second place at the moment, because he seems to have at least equal pace as Max has, and at the same time Kieran is coming closer and closer. The gap was over 2.5 seconds, I remember, after he spun, and now it's already come down to nearly less than 2 seconds, which has now come down to less than 2 seconds, and it's not going to be far away until Kieran re-enters that DRS window, and then I think we are about to witness a great fight for that race winner tonight, because it looks like Max has got a lot of competition here.
Yeah, he's not got the pace advantage that maybe we saw in the last couple of weeks, and that's always good to see from a commentator's point of view, is that the fastest driver in the field has maybe got more challenge than he had in previous weeks, and hopefully we'll see Marley and keep up this challenge that they're shown so far. I mean, Kieran should be in the race lead if it wasn't for that mistake he made. So, and you can see how much he's coming back at the top too. I wonder if they'll be getting a little bit concerned up front because they probably weren't expecting Kieran to close in as quickly as this.
Yeah, I mean, you saw he had a gap of like 1.5 seconds and he managed that quite well before his mistake. And now suddenly he's just gained 3/10 within one lap. And his pace is great at the moment. And if he keeps on doing what he's doing right now, he is in the undercut window and might be able to do something with the strategy to overtake more easily than on the track, because you can see Mali is close and he seems to have a bit more pace than Max at this stage, but he's still not able to pass him just yet.
No, he's getting ever closer, but you can see they're just losing a little bit of front end grip coming through turns 1 and 2, being so close to the back of Max. Kieran 1.5 seconds away now, and a little change in position now. Doesn't look like it was too hardly fought for, but Rick has just moved up to P6 past Fedez Piga, and I wonder if he'll be past Kryptonite pretty quickly as well, because he looks like he's got more pace than his teammate, and maybe Rick could come into play later on as well.
I gotta say, it's a bit of a blessing in disguise right now that Black Box is stuck in that train, because he hasn't got the pace to race on his own and still gain some time on the front guys here. But that big DRS train he is in at the moment is at least keeping him alive, more or less, because he gets to use the DRS on the straights and isn't dropping like a stone anymore like he was at the start of this race. After his incident, he must have front wing damage. So I reckon he's a force to be reckoned with after his pit stop, after he changed his front wing. The question is, when does he do it and how far behind will he be? Because I wouldn't count him out for a good points paying position at all for this race, especially if there's a safety car coming up, which I think is not too unrealistic considering we've already lost 4 drivers in this race and we've seen many mistakes in there. It looks like Rick is getting closer and closer to Kryptonite now.
Yeah, I wonder if he's down the straight, if the Alfa Romeos are going to have a change in position. Rick is keen to get on with it. Kryptonite gives him the inside line, and I think that was very much a, well, I say it was very much a team order. I think Rick made a bit of a mess of a corner, to be honest, so it wasn't quite as smooth as it should have been, but the Alfa Romeos have swapped round, and Rick is up to P5, and I just wonder, is Mobarak starting to struggle with the pace out front, because he's drifted away from Kieran quite significantly now. Yeah,
speaking of Kieran, look at how much he's gained again. I mean, that man has got some great pace in this race, and I think on pure pace, he is probably the fastest man on the track at the moment, even though Mali is sitting comfortably, only 4/10 behind Max all the time. He's probably getting a bit nervous now as well, because he sees that AlphaTauri getting bigger and bigger in his rear view mirrors, while he had that spin and it took him a couple of laps to recover. But once he got back in his rhythm, he has consistently gained a couple of tenths per lap on those 2 guys up front, and I think that would be what would worry me if I was Mali or Max, and Max is far from safe in this race.
Yeah, I think Kieran has used a bit more of his battery as well, just to try and close that gap up, but now once he gets into that 1 second window of Mali, he can start to rest his battery a little bit and start to gain it back slightly. So there's definitely freeway fight at the front now. Mobarak, I don't think quite has the pace, but he's still running a very good P4. The likes of Rick and Black Box are going to need a safety car, I think, to really challenge for the win or podium this afternoon. But it could happen. They just need a bit of luck. We've already had 4 retirements, but they've all been in the pit lane, so no crash out on track just yet. But this is one of those circuits that can easily catch a driver out.
Yeah, especially with the walls being pretty close to the cars. You can see them all the time on the right and left hand side. I mean, we've got a couple of runoff areas with some gravel here and there, but the walls are never too far away. And they will catch you if you go in too hot into a corner. But yeah, it looks like Kieran has a good chance of doing something with the strategy now. But the Spiga was the first one to pit in a scheduled manner, I think. He was in the pits on the previous lap and he switched onto the medium tyre. So I reckon around now would be the point where you should be able to switch onto a different set of tyres. Ghost King, who started on the mediums, is now going on to the hard compound. Black Box should not be too far away from a pit stop either, I think, because he will want to get on with it as Rick picks up his first penalty of the evening with a 3-second one, which would, in theory, bring him back behind his teammate Kryptonite.
Yeah, will be costly, that penalty potentially for Rick. Later on, we'll see how it.
Oh, and Kieran is inside the DRS window for the first time since his spin. The AlphaTauri of Kieran is back inside that DRS window, and that will really help him out now to recharge some of his battery. Jesus Christ! As Marley pits now, and he's willing to go for the undercut. Hopefully he doesn't speed now. Remember, it's 80 now on this game, actually, on this year, I mean, since the pit lane has been widened as well with the track changes that have been made. They have widened the pits as well with that, and now the speed limit is up to 80, so the pit window isn't as big as it used to be. And I'm wondering, where does he come out? I think he comes out right ahead of Jabaka. Yes, he does. And that is crucial. He's got a lot of clean air ahead of him. And if he nails that lap, look at his ERS. He's got 90% left. He's got all to use now. And if he nails this lap, and if Max maybe struggles a little bit here and there, he might have a chance of making the undercut work.
I was about to say, I tell you what, Max is absolutely... He's going through his ERS. He was on 90% on this lap. He's now down at under 40. So Max knows how crucial this is to try and remain in the lead, and he's draining his battery in an attempt to do so. Kieran has dropped back because of that, because Max is really trying to charge. And was he just holding back, Max? Did he have a bit more pace, and now he's going to show it? Surely he's coming in at the end of his lap. Yes, Max is in. What does Kieran do? Kieran pits as well. I was about to say he stays out, Kieran, but he
hit the ball on the outside there.
Yeah, very aggressive on the pit entry. Mobrat will take the race lead for now, but what has Marley been able to do on this lap?
19.6 seconds was the gap in between race leader Max and Mali, who has just come out of turn 14, and it looks like he's too far behind. Where is Kieran now? That is the big question. Is Kieran actually going to take P2 here effectively? No, he is not, because he has to brake earlier, and Mali is able to take the proper line. But now it is crucial for Mali to go as quick as he can. He needs to use that advantage of his warm tyres, and you can see that Max is still struggling with the tyre temps. Obviously, coming out of the pits, it's going to take him at least half a lap to warm these tyres up, and he's already gained 7/10 on Max, who is the effective race leader at this point, and he needs to desperately get back into that 1 second window, which he is now. And if he wants to go for a move, it needs to be on this lap, I think.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed it does. Rick as well, who pitted later than Fedus Piga, has been leapfrogged by the Haas driver, so he overtook him early. He's going to have to make that move all over again. Black Box is still behind. He is yet... I really don't understand why Black Box has stayed out if he's got damage.
Maybe he wants to go on softs.
Yeah, potentially. It's looking like a tall order for Black Box to salvage much from this race, but Marley is back where he wants to be, but he maybe would have hoped to do a bit more damage to Max during that pit stop phase.
He was close, but I think to warm these tyres up, it just took a little bit too long. He sets the fastest lap of the race. I mean, he did what he needed to do, but he just couldn't get close enough. And we got to say, it was a great lap that Max did there on his in lap. And he needed that as well. He used all of his ERS. Same with Mali, who's now around 50% now. And it's pretty much the same situation we've had before, apart from Kieran, who was a bit further behind than he was before. So that just underlines how quick Max was on that in lap.
Yeah, Max will be loving the sight of this at the moment. His nearest championship contenders nowhere near him, and You know, if he wins this race from here and they can't salvage really good points, then Max you could argue, has got one hand on this title.
Oh, and it's not over yet, though. Remember, we saw some mistakes from drivers time to time, again, over the course of this season. And Max is still yet to make one. And
yeah, Marley's not letting him breathe easily. He's sticking with him all the way, and compared to the last few weeks where we see Max just sort of drive away, this is not like that this week. He's got two very close contenders, and once again you're seeing Kieran bring that gap back down.
Yeah, wow. 6/10 gained on that previous lap without the help of DRS. Wow, but he's draining his battery as if it's the last lap of the championship. Look at that, 17%. Not much. And look at that, Mali. Max has got to feel Mali breathing down his neck. And he sees that silver arrow in his mirrors, bigger and bigger each and every lap. And at some point, it's going to appear right next to him. And that is the moment when he needs to defend for his life if he wants to win this race. But he has got some good battery reserves. So I wonder if Mali is actually able to get past. Will he actually be able to, you know, pull away and gain the time in order to not be able to get attacked? We'll have to wait and see, but for now he's still too far away. The gap stays around 4/10, 5/10, and that is just a bit too far. The track has been altered to make overtaking more easy, but it is still not easy at all. It's not a track like Monza or Spa where you can just fly past someone as long as you're quicker. But maybe now he's 4/10s away. If he gets a gut run out of turn 1, he might be able to go for a move, but he hasn't got the best of runs. He lost time again. It looks like the traction zones and the exits out of the corners that are crucial to line up an overtake. That's where Max's strengths are in this race. And that is what is costing Mali at the moment. And Black Box is, by the way, still out on his first set of tyres and his damaged front wing. He must be hoping for a safety car at this point. And Kira picks up a penalty. Ooh, that could cost him dearly.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a quick look now to see how many warnings Max and Mali are on, if any, just to see if they're potentially close to a penalty as well. Okay. Ooh. Well, I can tell you that Mali is on 2 warnings. Max hasn't got any. So Mali's 1 away from a penalty as well, but Max has kept it very clean and tidy.
Yeah, that makes a bit of a difference always, because you always have in mind, if I go too wide now, it's over. So you rather lift off a corner that one time too many than risk it and pick up a penalty. And Max doesn't have that problem at the moment. He can afford to track extend twice without risking a penalty. And that really puts him in the prime position here. His pace is not bad at all, but I don't think his pace is that superior in comparison to the pace of Mali and Kieran in this race.
Just look as well. Max has a full battery to use. He seems like he's comfortable, even though he's under a lot of pressure. There's 2 cars right behind him. It feels like he's still running his own race. He's conserving his battery. He's staying within the track limits. And like you say, particularly when you're on 2 warnings, you do feel like you're walking that tightrope, and it does sometimes affect how you drive. Because of that, you maybe leave a bit more width than you normally would. So. But Mali still stays within Max, but he hasn't been yet close enough to really mount a challenge under DRS.
I gotta say though, Mali doesn't have that much energy that he's used in the previous couple of laps. It looks like he's saving some of his battery as well. I mean, he has the DRS, so that keeps him in competition, but he probably wants to save quite a lot, so he can actually go for the overtake and then use some more ERS in order to get away. Otherwise, it's just going to be a matter of time when Max regains that lead. if he drains all his battery and can't pull away.
Yeah, he's got to think carefully. Like you say, he doesn't want to leave himself defenseless if he can make a move. And Kieran now will be doing the same thing, I imagine, just trying to save some battery up, ready for later on. He'll be hoping that maybe they fall into a trap of picking up a penalty as well. Meanwhile, just behind, we've got Rick on the back of Mobarak for P4. Rick's another one with a penalty, but if he can get in front, he might be able to pull the gap that he needs. And you have to say, from P20 on the grid, I know there was a lot of chaos at the start, but definitely helped him work his way through the field. But nevertheless, Rick's done a superb job from the back of the grid.
Yeah, at the moment, he's actually got the gap to fit the speaker behind, and the chances for a P4 are still not off the table. And so is the first place not off the table for Mali or Kieran. And look at Mali. Mali's closer than ever, I think. Only 3/10 behind. He pulls to the inside, tries to make his championship rival a bit more nervous, or his race rival, I should rather say. But he shouldn't have done that. I think that caught himself off guard more than it should have, and more than it did with Max. And in the end, that compromised his run through turns 1 and 2, and that completely destroyed his chances for an overtake on this lap.
Yeah, Kieran ran a bit deep into turn 3 rather, in his attempt almost to try and spook Marley. So Max was the one keeping it composed there, while Marley and Kieran were trying their best to make something happen. You must be right about Black Box going for soft tyres, but I mean, he's in P10 and he hasn't even stopped yet, so it's not looking good for Black Box. That incident with Amryu has kind of unfortunately destroyed his evening, and it's so difficult to drive with damage on really old hard tyres now, as he actually loses that final point to Jabreka.
Yeah, it's a shame to see where Black Box has ended up in this race, considering what happened on that one. That is not in any way a fault of his own. As we had yellow flags for a second there, I think that was actually Black Box letting Hersey go through. And once again, Mali's close, but not close enough. Look at that. And he now starts to struggle a little bit with his rear grip, and had to use some of his battery in order to stay ahead of Kieran, or to not come under pressure from Kieran. And it looks like Mali's just not able to get close enough at the moment.
No, he's now in that position as well, where he's almost looking in his mirrors as much as he's looking in front of him with the pressure from Kieran. So Mali's really in the middle of a sandwich here, and it's almost like you don't want to you're less inclined to take risks in that position, because you know if you get it wrong, you're going to lose a position as well, not just stay where you are. So yeah, what Mali does from here is going to be interesting to see, but it almost looks like, if anything, Kieran's closer to him than he is to Max.
And especially the exits out of turn 14, out of turn 10, out of turn 2. Those are where Max's strengths are all around this track, and that's what really helps him. You can see him gain just that little bit of time out of those corners. Even though it looks like Mali is getting closer and closer, but he just isn't. He stays in the same place where he was just a couple of laps ago. And he's just not close enough to make a move just yet. And look at that, he's still too far away, and the time is ticking. The amount of laps is coming down more and more, and with each and every lap, his chances for his first race win of the season are getting more and more slim. As Kieran made a little mistake now and lost some time. That might give Mali some breathing space and put him under less pressure. And maybe he can use that little bit of breathing space now to focus a bit more on attacking, rather than having to look in his mirrors.
Yeah, he'll be hoping for more of that from Kieran, who potentially will be thinking he should be leading this race. Of course, he led the way earlier on and had that mistake, so yeah, he'll be thinking, I should be in front right now, I shouldn't be the one playing catch-up, as it were, as Ethan does the fast lap of the race, and that's crucial. Obviously, it does take the point away from Kieran, who had it previously, although I suspect Black Box, when he pits, will have a pretty good shout at taking that fastest lap point away, which is probably what he's thinking of his point. He's thinking, I'm not going to score any points, so the best thing I can do is try and take a point off a championship rival.
It's not going to help him all too much though, because at the moment looks like Max is just invincible right now. Even though the gap is not big, it's not coming under the pressure of an actual attempt to overtake from Mali behind, who seems to be getting a bit more nervous now and a bit more impatient towards the end of this race. There's not much overtaking going on, but it's still very tense there at the front, because one single mistake could decide the outcome of this race. Just look at that, Max got that a little bit too wide, but still managed to recover from that, even though there's such a long straight coming up now that he didn't lose too much time. And he's got a lot of spare energy left to use in case he's getting attacked by Mali at some point.
Yeah, he feels like he's got all the tools in the box needed to fend off these guys, but like you say, all it takes is one mistake for that to go completely out the window. So he's got to keep that focus high, and this isn't a position he's been used to recently, having so much pressure on him from cars behind for this race win. So we'll see if he can cope with it. So far he's not put a foot wrong, but we've still got 4 laps to go, and Mali and Kieran will not give up this fight. Even Kieran, who has that penalty, he's still got to think something could happen. If he can make a few moves, he could still maybe pull a gap. He's still got to try and think that he's not out of contention for the win.
But you can see the Mercedes of Mali is sliding more and more now. It looks like that driving in the dirty air right behind Max's gearbox has really cost him some tyre wear throughout this race. The gap has now got up to 6:10.7 now even. It looks like Mali's tyres are going down a little bit. And maybe, just maybe, in theory, if he realises Max is too quick and he won't be able to get him, it might be worth a shot for Kieran to let Kieran go by, try let him attack Max. You're going to be ahead of him anyway after that 3-second time penalty, as long as you don't pick up one. But that maybe still inherits the chance of a battle for first, where you might be the lucky third driver that picks up the pieces of maybe a crash.
Yeah, it's definitely worth Mali at least thinking about doing something now, because as it stands, he just isn't able to get past Max. I think, like you say, the problem is the areas where he needs to be better than Max, the traction zones leading on to the straights, is where he's losing the most time to Max. He just isn't quicker than Max at the parts of the track where he needs to be quicker. The closest he's getting to Max around the parts of the track where you can't do anything about it.
And I think that is what Max knows as well. He knows he's quick where he needs to be quick. And I think that's why he knows he's not under that much pressure as he could be. If Mali would be able to, you know, use his pace in the right corners, in the right areas of the track. But still, once again, it's 5 tenths in between them. And he's still not going to be able to attack him at all, as Black Box actually retires in the pit lane. A real shame for him.
Yeah,
he was probably staying out, hoping for a safety car.
Yeah.
And now with only 2 laps left, that hope has been crushed.
Yeah, and you have to say he's unlucky in that one, because I'd say in nearly every race this season we've had a safety car at some point, so it's just not. This is the one time we haven't had one, as Kryptonite goes round the outside of Fedus Piga. There's contact between them. Fedus Piga has a half spin, recovers it, but there's a bit of contact there. I think Kryptonite had the outside line going into turn 11 and was ahead, and it was a little bit silly, I think, from the Haas driver to leave his nose in. I think that was a battle he'd already lost, unfortunately for him. But he maintains P7, but he may come under threat from Johan.
I kept an eye on that gap and it just stayed the same. Only 2 laps left in this race, or 1.5 if we want to be exact. And it's not looking like there's any hope for Mali at the moment to find any way past that Williams up front. Look at that. Look at how much ERS Max has got. Look at how little ERS Mali has got now, and he's not got 1 inch closer to that rear end of the Williams. Oh, as he makes a mistake and then he spins the car around. He's lucky that Kieran is a bit too far away to use that mistake to his advantage. But you can obviously see that red light on the rear wing of that Mercedes. He sees that there's not much ERS left to play with from Mali, and maybe he'll try to use that chance as Rick picks up another penalty, which doesn't cost him a position actually, because he's got a gap of 10.4 seconds to his teammate right now. As Mali picks up a penalty now, and this might get interesting.
Yeah, and he's out with DRS for Max. He's had a real poor lap as Mali, and now this fight is genuine. They've both got the same amount of penalties, and Mali just looks like he's struggling. I wonder if he's done one extra lap on those mediums. Has he maybe just worn them out a bit quicker? But right now, Kieran has a great opportunity to take P2.
Yeah, Kieran, after his spin, is willing to at least take P2 now, after he had let the race for the first half. And now he's going around the outside on the final lap against Mali. Both are on equal amounts of ERS, and he's using his overtake part and he's spamming it, but he can't get past. Or is he going around the outside of turn 9? Yes, he is! What a move from Kieran as he loses the rear end, slightly coming out of turn 10 now, but he has got the DRS and it looks like he has got the position. Wow! What Stunning. A move from Kieran around the outside of turn 9. I've very rarely seen this kind of overtaking around Australia, but wow, what a move as Max comes across the line to take his third race win in a row and extend that championship lead. And it's going to be Kieran across the line to take P2 against Mali with a brilliant move on the final lap. After Mali was just not able to get past, Rick comes across the line in fourth. It will be fifth though on penalties as Mulbrook takes his fourth position. Kryptonite comes across the line to take home a sixth place. Solid result from the Alfa Romeo drivers and a great race from Rick, and it's going to be close in between those guys in side by side with Johan and Federspiegel, but Johan is going to lose out and only take 8th with Federspiegel in 7th, Jabraka in a 9th, and Damiano rounds off the top 10 with our final point going to the other AlphaTauri car. But that was a move and a half on that final lap from Kieran.
Yeah, the utmost bravery from Kieran, riding it all the way around the outside. And both drivers superb there in combat. And Kieran really just he seized the opportunity. All it took was one poor lap from Mali, and Kieran made the most of it. And it's not often, like you say, you get a move around the outside of turn 9 and make it stick into turn 10. But Kieran did it, and fair play to him. I think he deserved P2. I think he did really well to close back up after his mistake early on. And Mali tried to make the undercut work on Max. It didn't pay off, and in the end, maybe just ran out of tyres by the end of the race.
I would love to see that move from the onboard of Kieran there. That was superb driving from both drivers. Gotta say, fair play to Mali, because I think there would have been many drivers who would have just said, I'm not going to give you any room around the outside there. But fantastic stuff from both of them. And seeing that it only took one poor lap from Mali at the end to lose that position just shows you how tense that fight really was. Even though they never went side by side before in this race, it was still very close in between them. But in the end, Max just once again underlines why he's in the championship lead and why he's looking to become the champion with his first shot of securing the title next week when we head to Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, and if my maths is correct, he'll have a 29-point lead over Black Box. So, barring a real disaster in Abu Dhabi, it's very likely he will seal the championship next week. Black Box, Johan, I think it's just those three now that can win it. I think Rick is now officially out of contention. But to be honest with you, it's going to take something pretty remarkable to deny Max, who has really come to the fore in the last 3 weeks. 3 wins in a row now. He was always thereabouts in the championship fight, but we never really sat up and took notice of him until he took that win in Portugal a few weeks ago, and he's just kept our good run of form going. And even tonight, where Mali put him under the utmost pressure for the vast majority of that race, Max never really looked like he was in any sort of trouble.
He managed his battery. He never got a single penalty throughout the entirety of the race. And he just did what he needed to do. He kept a cool head and in the end took the race win. And the third one in a row now. And I wouldn't have thought that this championship fight has would go in such a way now with 2 races remaining. We have a championship leader by 29 points. But you got to feel for Black Box. He's done everything he needed to do in qualifying. He beat his championship rival Max. He's kept his position at the start, and then it's all gone downhill from then onwards. From turn 3 onwards, this was just not meant to be for him. Not a single safety car that got him back into this race. We had races where we had 3 or 4 safety cars, and exactly the one where he gets taken out on the opening lap is the race where he doesn't get the safety car he needed so desperately.
Yeah, second week in a row that we've lost a championship contender, really through a lot of bad luck. Obviously, Rick with a puncture last week, and now Black Box, minding his own business, he was in front of Max going into turn 3 on the opening lap, and that's unfortunately where Anryu completely missed his braking zone and wiped him out. And like I say, we've had so many safety cars this season. It's just really unfortunate, but this was a race where we didn't have one, and it never gave Black Box the opportunity to get back into the fight he deserved to be in. It's really unfortunate for him, but for Max now, it's looking like it's just a matter of time until he's confirmed as the F3 champion.
Yeah, we are about to find out next week when we head to the Yas Marina circuit around Abu Dhabi. Other way around. In Abu Dhabi, around the Yas Marina circuit, where once again an updated track layout, where some corners changed completely. And Max has got his first match ball and has got everything in his own hands with 2 rounds remaining. That is a prime position, and looking at the form that Max has at the moment and looking at the mistakes he made this season, you won't find any. And if he keeps on doing what he has been doing, and if he can just stay out of trouble, stay away from bad luck, even though you can't sometimes, if you look at Black Box here tonight, he will steal the championship next week. But it's still not over till it's over. We all know that. And I think Abu Dhabi is actually the perfect place to underline that. 2021 Formula 1 finale. We all know what happened. We don't want to talk about this anymore, but just to show that it's never over until you've crossed the line for the final time in the race. So it's still not over, and I'm excited to see how next week is going to go. If Max is able to keep that good streak of results going and maybe pick up his 4th race win in a row.
Yeah, and that's no mean feat in a tier where the drivers are so close and so evenly matched on pace. You can't say anything other. He's been supremely impressive, and we'll see if he can wrap it up at Abu Dhabi.
Yeah, and with that being said, anything else to add, Jake?
No, except for I'm really looking forward to Abu Dhabi next week, and of course the finale at Austin the week after should be a lot of fun, and it'll just be good to see these drivers maybe race with the shackles off, particularly in the last round if it comes down to it, and we may see a few drivers surprise us in the next few rounds. Of course, last chance to impress before you start thinking about next season as well, so we'll see if any of these guys can impress themselves into a higher tier.
Yeah, I think Max has met the can't find the word right now. Met the expectations for an F2 driver. That's what I needed. The expectations for an F2 driver next season, if he keeps on doing what he has been doing for the final couple of races, for the last couple of races we've had now. And I think it is now 4 race win within the last 7 races, if I'm not mistaken. 4 race wins in the last 6 races, actually. 4 race wins within the last 6 races. That is impressive. And he's not had a single podium before his first race win. He had one no scorer in Monaco, a podium in Silverstone, and since then he's won every single race, and he seems to not be able to get stopped by anyone at the moment, but we'll have to find out next week when we are back for PSGL F3 around Abu Dhabi at 8 p.m. UK time. As usual, make sure to check out our sponsor GT Omega, and yeah, make sure to check out the other streams that were live. Well, we were live as well with the other PlayStation divisions, and throughout the week there's going to be the PC divisions racing once again as well. Make sure to check out the PSGL channel and the PSGL Twitter account as well. If you want to be a part of the PSGL community and race yourself, check out the Discord. Link to that is on the Twitter page. And with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this race. And with that being said, goodbye, and take care.